Isn't it time that you remembered that you are extraordinary? There is absolutely nothing ordinary about you. You know, we have been absolutely deceived and lied and subconsciously programmed to believe that as human beings we are ordinary. But we are not ordinary. We couldn't be more different than ordinary. We are extraordinary beings, and we have extraordinary abilities, gifts, and talents that start to be activated, that start to switch on as soon as we start to open up our awareness, our minds, as soon as we start to explore this as a truth. You know, back in 2019, I think it was, this is when I really consciously made a choice, made a decision that I was going to live an extraordinary life. I was not going to live an ordinary life. I looked at the ordinary life and I just said, that is not enough. That is not good enough for me. You know, I was in a successful job, you know, by all the parameters of what success was. I was successful. I had a good career. I had a nice house, still got it. You know, had a car, had all these things that we say is successful. But inside, I didn't feel inspired. Inside, I knew that I was out of alignment with my soul. I knew that it wasn't fulfilling me, this so called life that I had created for myself. And I started to realize if ordinary meant working like a slave to exhaustion, and then just being able to live for those weekends if you weren't working, or just being on holiday. But even when you're on holiday, right, you would start to recognize it. Let's say you went on holiday for 2 weeks, it'd take a week just to stop thinking about all of the work that you had to do back in your job, or all of the responsibility, all of the illusion of responsibility, because the responsibility that is created through this slave system moves us away from the fact that taking true responsibility for our life is actually about empowering ourselves to move out of the matrix, to move out of the limiting beliefs that have been programmed to keep us in that slave system. I started to realize, well, that is ordinary. I didn't get it. I didn't get why we were all doing this, and why we're all because we were all complaining. At least that was my experience. You know, whilst I spoke to my work colleagues, whilst we did have fun and we did laugh and we did bond, we bonded over our misery almost, or over our stress. Over the fact that we were working all these hours, and um, uh, but so none of us really enjoyed it per se, but it was almost like it just seemed like it was normal, it was ordinary, and that was life, right? That is the life that has been painted for this ordinary life, as if we are just these ordinary beings that have no power to create a reality that is fulfilling, that a reality that is fun, that a reality that is passionate, enriching, that actually adds to our life, makes us light up inside, and makes us grow and expand in new ways. And that light that we start to embody, as we start to empower ourselves, as we start to live an extraordinary life, well, then it starts to add into the planet, and it starts to light up the planet as well. So I started to realize in 2019, I started to say, I'm not going to live an ordinary life. If people want to live in that ordinary life, and that's up to them, but I choose to live in truth. I choose to start aligning with something extraordinary, because I had a knowing that it wasn't right, that all the stuff that I'd been taught, that I'd believed, just wasn't right, because I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel fulfilled. Yeah, it's not that I never felt happy. I made the best of my situation. I always did that. But I just thought, I cannot. My biggest fear was waking up in 10 years and still be doing that job, and being absolutely stressed. I nearly had a nervous breakdown twice, and I know so many people work like that in the corporate world, and not just in the corporate world, right? Even in the public sector, in these, because the world has been created to make us as slaves, and make us believe that we are ordinary, but we're not ordinary, and we hold all of these gifts and talents, all of these abilities to be able to tune into our cosmic mind, to our higher self, to be able to align with our soul's truth, so that we can actually start to embody our soul and start to sculpt and co-create a life with source, with the universe, that is a life that is led by the soul. When we live in the life led by the soul, rather than the life that is entrapped by the mind, by the ego, by the limited self, then not only do we start to dissolve those limits, and start to empower ourselves, then we start to remember the truth of who we are. We are these multi-dimensional beings. We exist on more than just one dimension, and we didn't come here to follow the status quo. We came here to smash that status quo, to start helping the planet to remember that we are extraordinary. And as we tune into that, then we start to create an extraordinary life, which is really our normal life, because that is in alignment with the soul. We are beings that can teleport to different dimensions. We can telepathically communicate with each other without words. We can feel the truth, and telepathic communication comes from the heart. It doesn't actually come from the brain. You're not reading thoughts, you're plugging into the heart space and reading the messages from the heart. And to go on this journey of becoming extraordinary, which I chose for myself back in 2019 consciously, we have to go on this healing journey. It's a journey of self-discovery, but it's discovering the true soul self, right? In order for us to really stand in truth, we've got to consciously connect into source. Source is our life force energy. It's who we truly are. And as we connect into that life force, I use this in my meditations, we are connecting into source so that we can start to, actually, it starts to melt. What is the Holy Spirit? The Holy Spirit is fire. What does fire do? Well, it burns up all that is not organic, all that is not in alignment with truth. That's what the holy fire does. As we start to work with that holy fire in our body, and we can work with the elements as we start to do this, we start to work with the elements, start to work with the holy fire, we start to dissolve all of those limiting beliefs, all of those programs that keeps us boxed into that so-called ordinary life, which is a slave life. And we start to basically get our wings. We start to know things. We start to plug into our cosmic mind. We start to receive information. We start to be led by the soul, by light, and we start to create this extraordinary life. But it starts, right? It started simply by me acknowledging that I could have an extraordinary life, that I desired an extraordinary life, that I was gonna have that life. I was gonna create a life. I had a desire to have a life of freedom. I had a desire to live a life where I could participate in, where I didn't have to just wait for the 2 weeks that I was on holiday to feel bliss, joy, and relaxation. That I could feel that as dominant energies within my life. I appreciate there's going to be times sometimes when we don't feel like that, but I want that to be the dominant reality, where I'm feeling joy, I'm feeling peace, I'm feeling bliss, I'm feeling inspired. I am switched on, tuned in, tapped in. And that is the journey that I started to open up to. And I was then led on that journey. And that is the journey, the reconnection journey, where I went down many dead ends. I've got to be honest, as I was going on that journey, I went down many dead ends. I tried on lots of practices, lots of things that were out there in the spiritual community that was saying was how you lived an extraordinary life. I realized a lot of those things actually hold you back from living an extraordinary life, because they don't go to the root, they don't go to the source, they don't even mention most of those things. Source consciousness, which is your life force energy. When you start to participate with that, you start to realize the universe is communicating with you, that you begin to consciously participate in a co-creation, and you are bringing in things that the universe wants to come onto the planet to really impact the planet in a positive way. And for me, it's healing. I had to go on that deep inner healing journey. I had to go down those dead ends so that I could sculpt this program that I could then bring forward for people so that they could quantum leap in their growth and expansion. That is the journey that we're going. That's what we do for each other, right? We all have our part to play in this great awakening, in anchoring heaven onto earth, in seeding the light and the sacredness back into creation. When we start to create through source, through light, well, we're going to create things that we actually like. We can look at the world right now and we can understand that a lot of what is in the world, a lot of what has been created in the world has been created through darkness, through deception, through mis and disinformation, purposely. And in doing that, obviously we haven't purposely participated in that. We've been manipulated, coerced a lot into that. But our creations have been created without source, without us embracing the soul. So many times they come from the ego, and the ego's been programmed through fear and lack. So the creations come through fear and lack. That's why we can see the chaos. We can see that most of humanity is not served by the systems that we have created. And it should be the other way around. As we start to heal, which we do when we reconnect back to source, that's the beauty of source. Both it heals us and it inspires us and puts us onto our path simultaneously at the same time, it starts to mean that we don't have to force, it's not so difficult to change our belief systems. Our belief systems really hold us prisoner. If we believe things that we are not enough, things like this, which are not the truth, then we are going to hold ourselves back. As we connect to source, well, those beliefs just disappear. I can't even connect. That was my biggest wound, not feeling that I was smart enough, good enough, um, feeling shame, guilt about who I was. That was my biggest wounds, and I used to focus on how I could dissolve that. And I started to shift my focus, because you don't need to focus on how to dissolve that. I started to shift my focus to working with source, to heal on a deep level, to heal, going right into the core of my being. And as I did that, I automatically started to reveal new things about myself, started to realize this dance that I was doing with the divine, that I was being led. And as I started to take those steps, well, I started to dissolve those feelings of not being good enough. Now I can't even connect to that. I can't even connect to that, because I don't even need to say it. At the time when I was going through that, a lot of I would say to myself, I am enough, I am enough. I'd be affirming, I am enough. And you don't need to affirm that when you connect to source, because you just know you are enough. If you are watching this video, if you are here on this planet, you are more than enough, and you came here to live an extraordinary life. So just start opening up to that, and you can start to be led. And you might even want to check out my program that helps clients to do that, to connect back to that, so you can find your mission. You can start to move into alignment with your soul while healing all of that simultaneously that holds you back. But I actually give the first week away for free, so you can see the quality of my work, so you can dip your toe in and see if it fits. But if you're not interested in that, just open up to the fact that you want to live an extraordinary life, that you came here to do that. Just open up and allow yourself to be guided to it.